They dragged a grown man to tears in front of 60 employees, and then they laughed. They called him incompetent, a waste of a salary, a charity case who should be grateful just to have a desk. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man they were humiliating was about to become the most powerful person in that entire company. And when that day came, not a single one of them was ready for it. His name was Daniel Owens, and if you passed him on the street, you probably wouldn't look twice. He wore the same navy blue blazer every single Monday. It was slightly faded at the elbows, the kind of faded that comes not from fashion, but from years of careful use. His shoes were always polished, always, because his late father had told him once, "Daniel, a man can be poor in his wallet but rich in his dignity. Polish your shoes. Hold your head up." He held onto that advice like a life raft. Daniel had grown up in a small apartment in East Baltimore with his mother and two younger sisters. His father passed when Daniel was just 16, a heart attack, sudden and cruel, the way tragedy always seems to be. From that day, Daniel became the man of the house before he even understood what that meant. He worked weekends at a grocery store, helped his mother with rent, and still graduated high school with honors. College came on a partial scholarship. He studied business administration, worked nights at a call center, and graduated quietly. No big celebration, no graduation party. His mother cried. His sisters made him a cake from a box. That was enough, that was everything. He joined Hartwell and Associates, a mid-sized financial consulting firm at 26, entry-level, analyst position. It wasn't glamorous, but Daniel didn't need glamorous. He needed opportunity. What he got instead was Richard Caldwell. Richard Caldwell was the kind of man who filled a room the moment he walked in, not because of warmth, but because of noise. Loud cologne, louder voice. He'd been senior director at Hartwell for 11 years, and in those 11 years, he had built a reputation for two things: closing deals and destroying people. From Daniel's very first week, Richard had made his feelings clear. "Owens," he said, barely looking up from his desk on Daniel's first day, "I don't know why HR keeps sending me people like you, but let me save us both some time. I have standards in this department." "Keep up or clear out," Daniel smiled politely. "Yes, sir, I'll keep up." Richard finally looked at him, a slow, measuring look, the kind that strips a person down to their worst insecurities. Then he turned back to his computer. "We'll see." And so it began. Every morning, Richard found something wrong. If Daniel's report was 12 pages, Richard wanted 10. If it was 10, he wanted 12. If the formatting was clean, the data wasn't dynamic enough. If the data was detailed, the formatting was too busy. There was no winning. There was never meant to be. In meetings, Richard would cut Daniel off mid-sentence. "Nobody asked for your input, Owens." In front of clients, he'd casually introduce Daniel as our junior guy still learning the basics. At company lunches, he'd make small, poisonous jokes. "Daniel, did you find that shirt at the church donation bin?" And the room would ripple with uncomfortable laughter while Daniel sat there, jaw tight, eyes steady. He never snapped back, he never stormed out. He went home, sat at his small kitchen table and worked, harder, longer, better. His colleague Maya, one of the few people who was kind to him, would sometimes find him in the break room at 7 in the morning, already on his second coffee, poring over spreadsheets. "Daniel, you've got to say something to HR," she told him once, her voice low with genuine worry. "What he's doing to you isn't okay." "I know," he said quietly. "Then why? Because the moment I complain, I'm the problem. You know how this works, Maya. I'm already fighting with one hand tied behind my back." He looked at her steadily. "So I'm going to fight smarter." She didn't fully understand what he meant. Not yet. The worst day came on a Thursday in November. The company had lost a major client, Mercer Global, a contract worth nearly $2 million. And Richard, facing pressure from the board, did what cowards always do. He found someone else to blame. In front of the entire department, 60 people, some standing, some sitting, all watching, Richard held up a printed report and let it fall to the conference table like it was garbage. "This," he said, voice sharp and carrying, "is the analysis Daniel Owens submitted for the Mercer account. This is what cost us a $2 million contract." He paused, letting the silence do its damage. "Owens, would you like to explain yourself? Or are you just going to sit there looking confused as usual?" The room was utterly still. Daniel's face didn't crumble, but inside, something cracked, because he knew that report was solid. He knew it in his bones. He had spent 3 weekends building that analysis, cross-referencing market trends, running scenarios. The reason Mercer left had nothing to do with data quality, and everything to do with the fact that Richard had gone into the final client meeting unprepared and arrogant. But Daniel looked at 60 pairs of eyes, some pitying, some avoiding his gaze, some silently relieved it wasn't them, and he said simply, "I understand." He drove home that night in silence, sat in his parking lot for 20 minutes, and then he made a decision. What nobody at Hartwell and Associates knew, what Daniel had never mentioned, never once used as a shield or a badge, was who his uncle was. Franklin Owens, co-founder of Owens-Briggs Capital Group, a private equity firm that had been quietly purchasing underperforming companies, restructuring them, and turning them into gold for 20 years. Franklin had watched his nephew struggle after his brother's death. He'd offered help 100 times. Daniel had refused every single time, not out of stubbornness, but out of something deeper. He needed to earn it. He needed to know he was more than a name. But that Thursday night, sitting in his parking lot, Daniel finally called his uncle, not to ask for money, to ask for a meeting. "I think," Daniel said carefully, "that I finally understand Hartwell and Associates from the inside. And Uncle Franklin, I think it's time." There was a pause on the line, then a low, warm laugh. "I've been waiting 4 years for that call, son." Over the next 3 months, Owens-Briggs Capital Group quietly acquired a controlling stake in Hartwell and Associates. It was done discreetly, through layers of holding companies, the way big financial moves always are. The staff noticed nothing. Richard noticed nothing. He was too busy taking a long vacation in Portugal, charging it to his expense account. When he came back, tanned and loud, there was a company-wide email waiting for him. Effective immediately, Hartwell and Associates has undergone a change in ownership and leadership structure. Please join us in welcoming our new Chief Executive Officer. Richard was halfway through the email, barely paying attention when the name stopped him cold. Mr. Daniel J. Owens. The silence in his office was the loudest thing he'd ever heard. The all-hands meeting was held on a Monday morning. Daniel walked in wearing a charcoal gray suit, tailored, quiet, perfect. His shoes were polished. He stood at the head of the conference table, the same table where 4 months earlier he had been publicly humiliated, and he looked out at 60 faces, every one of them stunned into absolute stillness. He let the silence sit for a moment, then he smiled, not a cruel smile, not a triumphant smirk. Just a calm, genuine smile, the kind that comes from a man who has nothing left to prove and everything left to build. "I know this is a surprise for many of you," he began, his voice even and warm. "I want to be clear about something from the very beginning. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because this company has good people and real potential, and I believe in both." He paused. "But I also believe that leadership sets the culture of an organization. And some of the culture here needs to change." His eyes moved just briefly to Richard Caldwell, sitting 3 seats down, face the color of old paper. Richard opened his mouth, closed it. Opened it again. "Daniel," he started. "Mr. Owens," Daniel said, quietly, firmly, without anger. The room went absolutely breathless. Richard Caldwell resigned that afternoon. He submitted a letter, packed a box, and walked through the lobby without making eye contact with anyone. People said later that his hands were shaking. Maya cried happy tears, the relieved kind, when Daniel stopped by her desk afterward. "You knew," she said, half laughing, half crying. 4 years ago, you already knew." "No," he said honestly. 4 years ago, I just knew I wasn't going to quit." In the weeks that followed, Daniel restructured the department. He promoted from within. He created mentorship pathways for analysts from lower-income backgrounds. He instituted a simple rule, one that was framed and hung in the main conference room, where everyone could see it every single day. Dignity is not a reward for performance. It is a baseline for every human being in this building. The Mercer account, by the way, Daniel personally reached out to them, presented a revised strategy, and won them back within 60 days. There's a moment in every powerful story where you have to stop and ask, what was the real hidden worth here? Was it Daniel's uncle's money, his business education, his analytical skills? No. It was his character. Every morning that he polished his shoes when he had every reason to give up, that was worth. Every time he absorbed humiliation and turned it into fuel instead of fury, that was worth. Every night at that kitchen table, working when no one was watching, when no one was clapping, when no one even noticed, that was worth. Richard Caldwell looked at Daniel Owens and saw a faded blazer and quiet eyes and assumed he was looking at a small man. He never once asked himself, what is this person made of? And that failure of curiosity, that laziness of judgment, cost him everything. Never let anyone's smallness define the size of your vision. Never perform your value for people who have already decided not to see it. Keep working, keep your dignity, polish your shoes. Because the truth about hidden worth is this: it doesn't stay hidden forever. It never stays hidden forever.